I've mentioned previously that the biblical support for developing a testimony or sharing your testimony or not being ashamed of communicating the gospel, there's such a preponderance of verses if you verse pool it that it's almost shocking. What's shocking then is given that amount of verse pool background that people still don't share, fear, and can't work through the fear, don't have a plan, or think that their faith is acceptable to be private. It's in the face of the biblical support. You would lose that court case so swiftly, there probably wouldn't even go to the jury. It'd get ruled out by the judge. Let me just give you some I've given you some already, but I'm just going to finish by giving you some just from the Gospels. This is not even talking about the epistles, Paul's writings, anything beyond that point, of which there's pages more of verses like these. But let me read a few. Matthew 24:14. This gospel of the kingdom will be preached, that comes out of the mouth, in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. We have a commandment to keep advancing the kingdom into all nations in any and every way that we can. Now, there's that line out there, and I can't remember if it's from about Martin Luther, but it said, preach the word every day, sometimes use words. And there's validity to that point, because this is a doctrine of both. You speak it and you live it. If you speak it and don't live it, we addressed it in a previous class. That's incompetency that's going to be disregarded and frankly shamed by unbelievers. And you can be competent in your testimony and you not speak it. So whether you speak it well and don't live it, or whether you live it well and don't speak it, both those are problematic, because clearly the commandment is that it be preached with the mouth and obeyed. So obedience and speaking travel together. They aren't separated. We're not specialists. We may have an inclination to be more reticent, to be less quiet, to not be as verbal. That's fine, but everybody is commanded to evangelize. Everybody's commanded to disciple. Within whatever your personality is, the key is not your personality, the key is Him. Inside that personality, submitted to God. This is the key. John 3, I tell you the truth, we speak of what we know and we testify to what we have seen, but still people do not accept the testimony. Remember, when you testify, even if you testify by the power of God, for the glory of God, according to the Word of God, that doesn't mean they're going to respond. Our job is to pray. Our job is to proclaim the gospel. Our job is to provide a gospel invitation. Their job is to respond to the Holy Spirit. So don't mix up your jobs, otherwise you're going to feel, I got to do it better. Just obey. Obey. Give it your best shot. If your best shot is just the woman at the well, she didn't give a gospel presentation. She said, come see this guy. But she'd been converted then within moments. So she didn't have an articulation. She knew enough, though, because she knew Him. And she'd been transformed in that instant. She's still going to work out her salvation. She's coming from a rough past. We know she's a prostitute. She's going to have baggage she's going to have to work through. But she is in the right spot because she's aligning with the right guy, and all she's got to do is stay at it. And she would if she was in community. In particular, if some older woman, Titus, came alongside her from the book of Titus. Older women work with the younger women. So they learn how to love God, love their husbands, be obedient. John 5 says, you've sent John, and he's testified of the truth. John the Baptist in this case. Not that I accept human testimony, but I mention this that you might be saved. So again, he's describing there's a testimony of the Holy Spirit, but it travels through men. And it's how people come to salvation. John 15, when the counselor comes, who I'm going to send from the Father, Acts 2 hadn't happened yet, the Spirit of truth, He will testify about me, so the Holy Spirit will testify about the Father. And you also must testify, for you've been with me from the beginning. So the Holy Spirit is testifying of Jesus, glorifying the Father, and we're testifying of our transformed state, that we were lost and now we're found. John 18, Jesus answered, you're right in saying I'm the king. In fact, for this reason I was born. For this reason I came into the world to testify to the truth. He testified of the Father. He brought glory to the Father, and the Holy Spirit glorified the Son. That's how they worked as the Trinity together. Three personages, people call them. We're not going to get into the doctrine of the Trinity. But there'd be an example. John 21. This is the disciple, John's talking, who testifies of these things and who wrote them down. We know this testimony is true. So you have more than enough examples, testimonies, doctrinal articulations as to why sharing your testimony is mandatory and critical for the Great Commission lifestyle.